Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne is regarded as one of the most brutal and unforgiving RPGs of all time. Every random encounter in this game is its own boss fight, and fluctuating strengths and weaknesses on the main character means you can't handle every situation that's thrown at you. If you get caught unprepared, you'll be beaten to a pulp and sent back to your last save point. With some dungeons having saves that are tens of minutes or more away from each other, it's not uncommon to lose a lot of progress. Speedruns of Nocturne demand a complete mastery of game knowledge and mechanics, and sometimes not even that is enough. This was the norm until May of 2021, when the HD remaster of Nocturne released worldwide. This version wasn't exactly faster for the normal categories, but it did include a new difficulty called Merciful, allowing players to enjoy the story without the original version's cruelty. It did cut down times immensely, with top runs in the any % Merciful category now coming down to just under 4 hours. However, while there were a few changes to the HD remaster, it wasn't enough to distinguish itself from the original outside the new difficulty setting. For nearly a year and a half after the game's release, that would be the case. But on October 22nd, 2022, someone by the name of Cardfet shared in the SMT speedrunning Discord that he accidentally found that you can dismiss the Demi-Fiend while in a random encounter. Now, he wasn't the first to discover this. In fact, there's a thread on the Steam community for this game dating back to August of 2021 detailing this, along with a complete step-by-step process on how to replicate it. However, for some reason, word didn't spread about this glitch, and it would take Cardfet rediscovering it for the right people to be made aware of what was happening. This by itself didn't do much except for make good content for those that enjoy Megaton Challenge playthroughs, but little did everyone know, this would completely break Nocturne HD Remaster speedrunning. Between going out of bounds and being able to summon as many Dantes as your heart desires, these glitches paved the way for future runners to beat Nocturne while only going through a third of the game. Today, we're going to cover the history of these findings, how some of these glitches work, and what it meant for a couple speedrunning categories on the HD Remaster. Stay hydrated, folks, and I hope you all enjoy today's video. Before we talk about how broken Nocturne is now, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Manscaped. Valentine's Day is coming up, and if you need to look fresh for that special person in your life, Manscaped has you covered with their special Rocketman edition of the Handyman Compact Shaver. The Handyman is your solution when you need that quick last-minute shave. Engineered with a unique dual blade, it includes a standard foil shaver as well as a long hair trimming blade to manage up to 3 days of beard growth. This thing will not let you down. With its great battery life, skin-safe technology to reduce nicks and cuts, and its waterproof exterior, this little guy is one of the most resilient shavers I've ever used. If you want to speedrun your shaving game, then use my link manscaped.com/drswell and use my promo code drswell for a big 20% off plus free international shipping. Thanks again to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. Every release of Nocturne outside the HD remaster didn't have major glitches present in the game. The speedrunning community has tried for years to break the PS2 version, with runners such as Pink Pajamas testing things on an emulator to see if anything would come of it. Now, SMT Nocturne is a long game, and the goal of it is to progress through the story to find your friends in the Vortex world, stopping the apparent primary antagonist, Hikawa. The real goal of the game is to recreate the world with whatever reason you align to, all while fighting a bunch of demons along the way. This opens up several endings, depending on who you align with. However, the path to each of these is mostly the same, requiring you to obtain the Himorogi key item to unlock the final dungeon, the Tower of Kagetsuchi. Your decisions throughout the game determine which final bosses you need to fight and what ending you'll get, allowing for several different outcomes. You can also complete the Labyrinth of Amala dungeon before going to Kagetsuchi, enabling the true demon ending and fighting the true final boss, Lucifer. Now that we have the game's route out of the way, Cardfet coming in and dropping this find in the SMT speedrunning Discord created a stir, and people were quick to do it themselves. If you're playing the PC version, go into the start menus, enter party, and hit return to stock. You need to make sure that you have at least 9 demons in your stock, or the glitch will not work. From there, you can take your mouse and hover over one of the demons in your stock. If you use your controller or keyboard, you can hit down and A several times. Backing out of the return to stock menu after doing this shows the Demi-Fiend is dismissed, leaving the rest of the demons in the party untouched. Now, even though you have 3 characters in your party, the game still thinks that slot is occupied, not allowing you to bring anyone else into the active party. However, one person messing around with this by the name of Brotodile was curious about the 3-character restriction, so he looked into some ways to get that slot filled. The very next day, he showed that if you use Beckon Call in an encounter to summon a demon, it would fill that slot. This again didn't do much, but after he went back into the menu and started messing around, some really weird things started to happen.
Welcome to the Cathedral of Shadows, where demons gather. Oh, all right.
Nocturne has a check to see if 3 demons have been summoned from your stock. If your party contains less than that, you can summon additional demons. If it's equal to 3, then you won't be able to summon more demons. If you have more than 3 non-demi-fiend demons summoned though, the restriction is removed and you can summon demons to your heart's content. Now, what does this affect exactly? Well, in many games when you go into a pause menu, the game world freezes until you exit that menu. Nocturne's menu system works like this, taking you to a screen that is layered on top of the game world. In other games, such as ones in the Soulsborne genre, menuing leaves the game world running, allowing you to interact with both at the same time. Basically, Brotodile found a way to actually make Nocturne the Dark Souls of JRPGs, fulfilling a prophecy thousands of years in the making. While there were a few quirks to work out at the time, this is where the glitches started to snowball. From here, Brotodile could layer menus on top of other menus, duplicate demons and encounters, use items outside of normal turns, and even get out of bounds when warping at a terminal under specific conditions. Unfortunately, none of these were useful in the speedrun in their current state, as the duplicate demons didn't persist outside of encounters, and warping out of bounds resulted in your character model falling as he ran, eventually ending in a soft lock. Yet, it was still only the first day after Cardfet shared his findings, and there was still much more to uncover. While nothing came out of the first 24 hours of testing, the days after that, Brotodile came back with another glitch that sent the community even further down the rabbit hole. When loading a save file while menu storage is active, the game loads everything except for the physical location of your character. For example, you could take a save that's at the final room in the Tower of Kagetsuchi and load warp a save that's at the beginning of the game. This would result in being at the final boss with only a level 1 demi-fiend. This led to Brotodile testing the suspend function, which is exclusive to the HD remaster. This allows you to save and quit the game at nearly any time without a save point, then you can just resume the suspended file exactly where you left off. In a technical sense, the game checks the demi-fiend's physical location before exiting to the title screen. Nothing else gets saved or checked, so as long as you're actually on the map, you can suspend with no issues. There are some places you can't suspend, but menu storage allows you to bypass this restriction and effectively suspend anywhere. This has some ridiculous effects, such as being able to walk around in places you're not normally able to, or to interrupt simple cutscenes. This also includes dialogue that happens before some boss fights, meaning you can suspend after hitting a boss cutscene trigger during the dialogue, load back in, and skip some bosses entirely. This was the goldmine that the community was looking for, and led to skips of Mizuchi and Kabukicho Prison, Mithra in the Diet Building, and Thor 2 and Tower of Kagetsuchi. Brotodile kept looking for ways to skip other bosses, but because of the complicated cutscenes and other things, suspending would either not cause a boss skip or just softlock the game entirely. While much of this was being brute forced through hours of testing, a mix of suggestions from the SMT speedrunning Discord and Brotodile's creativity kept pushing these glitches into new territory. When I talked with Brotodile, he shared with me his thought process and mentality around digging into these new finds. The idea was to keep trying the glitches with every possible scenario, leaving no stone unturned. While many instances led to a softlock, some gave different outcomes and eventually led him into finding out what drove those results. With that all being said, Brotodile tested suspending while traversing ladders and found something very interesting. While you're climbing a ladder, the demi-fiend's location is placed above the ladder and out of bounds during the animation. The same thing happens when you're descending a ladder, except the game puts you out of bounds slightly below the ladder. If you suspend and reload, you'll be able to move out of bounds. As long as you're still on the solid ground that slightly goes past the room's boundaries, you won't fall into the endless void. Also, thanks to walls and doors in Nocturne being one way, you don't have to worry about getting back in bounds. You can just walk right back in. Brotodile found this can be done in Labyrinth of Amala's 4th Kalpa to skip getting the star key and fighting Beelzebub. This can also be done in the 5th Kalpa to skip fighting Metatron. These two bosses are some of the hardest in a true demon ending run, and removing them from the route would save hours on the hard difficulty. The last thing Brotodile found during the explosion of glitches was a way to duplicate the Ifrit event after Cursed Hallway. The Cursed Hallway is a section in the 2nd Kalpa filled with extremely high level enemies and poisonous air that damages you as you're running through it. You're not meant to go through here until you beat Beelzebub in the 4th Kalpa, but if you manage to push through and reach the end, you can talk to an Ifrit who will give you 250,000 Maka. This is extremely important for the hard TDE speedrun, as it covers the cost of many things in the end game. Brotodile discovered that there's an additional quirk with suspending on a ladder where if you do it at a certain time, the loading of the next room allows the save to happen, but interrupts the return to the title screen, allowing you to continue playing with the suspend save still active. By using this specific suspend glitch with the ladder, getting the 250k Maka, and using a nearby healing warp that sends you back to the beginning of Amala and do a full save, you can reload the suspend save, do the menu glitch, talk to Ifrit, then interrupt that by loading your full save you just made. The cutscene continues after you load the save file, giving you an additional 250k Maka on the file that already completed the Ifrit scene. Now, this discovery appeared to be one of the big pieces to the puzzle that the Nocturne speedrunning community needed to make up for the lack of EXP and Maka from the new Beelzebub and Metatron skips. People were starting to come up with new routes around these glitches, with runners such as Shiner CCC entertaining ideas for different parts of the run. The potential route looked a little like this. Play normally through the game until you get the Demon Stock upgrade from Gozu Tenno, hit level 33 a while after that, and get Baphomet as your source of Beckon Call, which would be around Obelisk or so. Then the crazy menu and suspend glitches take over the run. With character levels being so low, you'd need either Dante or Raido, depending on what DLC you were using to play through the game, and use one of them as your main damage dealer while going through the rest of the game. There were many problems with this, especially in hard mode where the difficulty is completely ridiculous. One character can't carry a playthrough, and even with the ability to use healing items whenever you want in battle, a run would be sketchy at best. At this point, the discoveries started to calm down a bit, and people tried to find ways to implement these glitches into a run. Shiner would stream himself messing around with the menu glitches while also doing a no demi-theme playthrough, and the results were hilarious to say the least.
Same menu here. Okay, items, party, summon, Baphomet.
What? The camera! What the heck is this?
While this and other small finds were fun to see, it would be another month before Shiner accidentally made another huge discovery. Shiner was working on his no Demi-Fiend run when he went back to the 3rd Kalpa after beating Dante 2 in Black Frost, going to the location where Black Frost joins the party.
Bug?
I permanently get a 4-member team?
Remember, when you try to summon a demon from the menu and into your party after you dismiss the Demi-Fiend, the game doesn't let you. Beckon Call doesn't have this issue as it pulls a character into an empty slot in battle. The same can be said with the demon joining your party through an event, such as the Black Frost join cutscene. Eventually, Brotodile found that this lowered the level requirement to access the menu glitch down to level 28, which is when you can buy the Pisacha from the Shady Broker in the Labyrinth of Amala. After this, it would be another 5 months before Brotodile came back with another discovery. It's important to talk about that glitch hunting is a long and tedious process, especially for a community as small as Nocturne's. If you don't have a huge group of people testing or giving different ideas on how to break things, glitches may not have any meaningful application in a speedrun. In RPGs, it's compounded by the need to think about how these things impact money or experience routes. Using these glitches can be slower than just playing the game normally. It goes back to the issue of trying to fight the endgame bosses with low-level characters, like I mentioned earlier. Imagine a level 30-ish Demi-Fiend against Lucifer. Honestly, you might as well run away or die at that point. But funny enough, out of these two options, Brotodile was able to choose the former. Brotodile found out how to run away from some bosses and have it count as a win. The way this works has to do with the auto memory function the game has. When you enable auto memory and use it in battle, the game will remember the last action you performed with that character. This also includes running away from encounters. When you load a save file during an encounter and enable auto memory, the game will use the auto action for the character whose turn it happens to be. This happens in a way that bypasses normal restrictions, allowing you to escape, use Trifuri, or use a smoke ball in a boss fight. It can also let you use a pot of death against bosses, dropping their HP to 1 when you normally are not able to. With that being said, a month later in May of 2023, Brotodile was kind enough to find even bigger ways to break the game, and these would be the final pieces of the puzzle that led to the first glitch runs of Nocturne HD. When you try to load your game in a complicated cutscene, such as one that moves you around to different locations, the game soft locks, as you get placed in the 0 coordinate spot for the save you're loading into. However, Brotodile found that if you go to the load screen during the cutscene and back out of it, it sends you back to the main menu, with the cutscene still going in the background. Now, imagine doing this with the Dante and Raito join cutscenes in the 5th Kalpa. If you have a file that hasn't done it yet, and a file that has one of those characters in your party, you can enter the cutscene, go back to the menu, and load your later file with the Dante or Raito, confirm the join, and it allows you to have 2 or more of that character. While the prize here was an overpowered party of Dantes, this was just one way to use the new cutscene storage glitch, and it unlocked yet another way to break the game. Remember how you could use ladders to get out of bounds by suspending? Well, Brotodile found another way to get out of bounds with almost no restrictions. When you're in a cutscene, your character model becomes intangible, meaning it doesn't interact with the game environment. This includes walls, so that means you can suspend before a wall, load a file and go into a cutscene, then load the suspend point to move outside the wall, suspend again, and reload to prevent a soft lock. This unlocked out of bounds in many places in the game, including parts of the overworld in the Diet Building. This also led to the final and biggest skip Nocturne speedrunning has ever seen. After fighting Metatron, there's a tunnel that leads to the bottom of the labyrinth, ending in an elevator that sends you into a cutscene. This area also happens to be where the tutorial is located when you first go into the Vortex world. The room locations are different though, with the tutorial rooms being in the Unknown Realm. However, the elevator room which has the final cutscene is actually in the 5th Kalpa, so after getting access to menu storage, you can load your pre-tutorial save file. Then after that, load your most recent save when you're going into the tutorial, allowing you to bypass all the tutorial fights. When you go into the 5th Kalpa elevator and suspend the game, you can load the suspended game and you'll be in the 5th Kalpa right before the final scene at the bottom. Now runners will want to get Dante to get through the rest of the game bosses, and because nothing in Amala is unlocked except the first Kalpa, you need a different way to push through the dungeon. Thankfully, Brotodile had a simple solution. By creating a suspended save on the ladder going back up towards Metatron's room before getting the cutscene at the bottom of the labyrinth, you can get back to the 5th Kalpa by loading the suspend and load warping your finished cutscene save to bring over that True Demon ending flag. From there, you go through the 5th Kalpa backwards and can get Dante with ease, which includes the ability to duplicate his event. With all these glitches at Brotodile's fingertips and some help from folks such as Shiner, a run with the new glitches would happen in the merciful True Demon ending category. The record at the time for that category was set by Toxic TT on August 27th of 2022, clocking in at 6 hours, 2 minutes, and 59 seconds. The overall strategy he used was to dump a bunch of points in magic, have the Demi-Fiend learn Tornado at level 18 from the Hifumi Magatama, blasting your way through much of the early and mid game with that ability. Points are also put on the strength for the end game, allowing the Demi-Fiend to hit for massive damage with the Iron Claw ability learned from the Kamarogi Magatama. Combined with the strong in-game party of Raito, Titania, and Red Rider to cover buffs and various weaknesses, this was a solid way to speed through the game. Merciful also gives a massive boost to EXP and Maka, so little to no grinding is needed since you get all the levels you need from bosses. Still, Toxic TT had to push through the story and required boss fights in order to access the end game. Brotodile's first Merciful TDE run was similar at first, going through the game until level 28, which he gets around the Assembly of Nihilo. Then he goes straight to the Labyrinth's first Kalpa to get Pisacha after dismissing the Demi-Fiend to get menu storage. Brotodile then goes through the 5th Kalpa in reverse thanks to the tutorial load warp, He gets Dante and duplicates the join scene through a mix of menu storage, cutscene storage, and suspend loading, obtaining 4 Dantes. He then triggers the true demon ending, setting the flag to fight Lucifer at the end of the game. Brotodile has to get the Himorogi at this point, so he does cutscene storage to clip through the invisible wall next to Yoyogi Park's east entrance to reach that area early. He has to fight Girimikala and Sakahagi to progress the story, so Yuko takes the Himorogi to the Diet Building. This skips Kabukicho Prison, parts of Asakusa, and the entirety of Obelisk. Brotodile then goes through Asakusa Tunnel backwards to get back to Asakusa, registers that location in the terminal, and then goes into the Amala network to fight Spectre 3, all before reaching the Amala Temple. Brotodile fights the 3 bosses of the temple, leaves, and goes to the Diet Building not long after. Cutscene storage is used to get out of bounds and skip to the end of the Diet Building, but he does have to go back to the Amala Temple to set the Himorogi to access the final dungeon. Now, the only issue here is that because Brotodile never opened up Nihilo's Marunouchi entrance, the way to Obelisk and the final dungeon is blocked. Since the flags to open that entrance no longer exist, he needs to open up the true core of Nihilo and use an out of bounds to access the back exit. Once he's in Obelisk, Brotodile still needs to fight the Moire sisters before reaching the top, but that's only a small obstacle before the final dungeon. In the Tower of Kagetsuchi, Brotodile is able to run away from the 3 Reason bosses thanks to auto memory storage and have it count as a win. The Kagetsuchi fight still needs to be completed, but thanks to menu storage, he's able to heal his party members on command, making the fight extremely simple. Then, upon reaching Lucifer, Brotodile just runs away and triggers the ending scene of the game. This was just a proof of concept run with a ton of mistakes, but when Brotodile shared his time, he completed the run in 4 hours, 44 minutes, and 43 seconds, an hour and 18 minutes faster than Toxic's run. Over the next month, Brotodile brought the time down to 3 hours, 11 minutes, and 22 seconds after a few runs. Many of these time saves were messing up less of the glitches and removing unnecessary backtracking, such as combining the Dante duplications with out of bounds clipping in various areas. He also routed in the trip to Asakusa right after reaching Yoyogi Park East, letting him open up Nihilo's Marunouchi entrance, which keeps Brotodile from having to go back and almost finish the dungeon. This run was an incredible exhibition of the new glitches, and the Nocturne speedrunning community was amazed at how everything came together. It seemed like this was the end state of the run, but something even crazier happened in July of 2023. Brotodile was messing with the out of bounds glitch in various parts of the game, and he discovered a weird object in the Shinjuku Medical Center basement. When he interacted with the object, it warped him to a different location within that area. Later that day, he was wandering aimlessly out of bounds in the Amala Temple and came across another object that gives a prompt. This one lets you set the Himorogi that you'd normally get after the Diet Building, meaning you can skip the entirety of the temple in the Diet Building. It was at this point that Brotodile and others began to think that these were debug objects left in the game by developers. Brotodile's theory was that if he found these already, there had to be more throughout the game. From there, he ended up working with the SMT modding community to figure out how to use Unity tools to find these objects, and what he discovered was nothing short of amazing. First, Brotodile found an object at the start of the Tower of Kagetsuchi that lets you change your reason, thus changing your ending. There's also another object within the Labyrinth of Amala's entrance, inside the object you use to watch the Kalpa's cutscene. This object opens up the Kalpa holes, letting you travel down to the floor you unlock. These objects can be accessed by doing cutscene storage to make yourself intangible, then moving out of bounds to reach the debug object. The Amala Temple's object had the most impact on the glitched run, and it would show in Brotodile's next 2 records in August 2023, ending in a 2 hour, 43 minute, and 31 second time set on August 8th. He later improved this in April 2024 with a final time of 2 hours, 41 minutes, and 39 seconds, the fastest anyone has ever speedran SMT Nocturne. The main changes were removing the Diet Building and most of the Amala Temple from the run, combined with not making mistakes with glitches or demons dying. There's not a lot of variance outside of getting additional experience in random encounters, since getting level 28 is the first barrier to doing the menu storage glitch. Outside of the glitches, the only risk of not finishing the run comes down to the Girimikala and Sakahagi boss fight. Bringing 3 Dantes instead of 4 saves time, but the 4th party member ends up being a much weaker choice as a result. Since the Dantes are using Provoke to give the boss +2 attack and -2 defense, that 4th party member could get killed off by the boss, ending the run because now there's no way to do the menu glitches. So Brotodile decided to bring in Take Minakata since he has decent stats, which includes around 168 hit points going into the Gira Makala fight. While there wasn't competition or interest from other folks running this category, Brotodile still managed to work out a great route with some ideas sprinkled in from others in the community. Like I mentioned before, one of those people was Shiner, and while he wasn't exactly working on a route of his own, he was thinking about how to beat the Rider bosses early, among other things in the run. Once Brotodile showed everyone how to run away from the Reason bosses, that was the inspiration Shiner needed to get a glitched hard mode run routed. By August of 2023, he had his route put together and was ready to do runs. The hard difficulty brings a lot more complications to the run, with higher encounter rates plus reduced experience in Maka compared to Merciful. Encounters are much harder since you don't have the ridiculous buffs from Merciful. Enemies deal double the damage when comparing to normal difficulty, and running away without an item or ability is not possible. This means that Shiner gets level 28 later than Brotodile, and he has to be very deliberate in his demon choices, menuing, and many other things to survive the run before any glitches happen. With that being said, up until after Kabukicho Prison, the game plays out almost like a regular hard any % speedrun. In Shiner's first version of the route, demons such as Karanzan, Nozuchi, Inugami, Minakata, Zhuanwu, and Uzume carry the early game until drafting the Army of Dantes. Once Shiner hits level 28, the run becomes similar to the Merciful version, but because boss fights like Gira Makala are not free, Shiner needs to keep a good range of demons in his stock. Shiner also opts to summon back the Demi-Fiend after the first menu storage glitches, as he needs to gain additional levels for later fusions and have a quick way to defeat Spectre 3. Spectre 3 is the boss that runners have to beat to reach the Amala Temple. Unfortunately, he repels all offensive magic attacks, so you have to bring someone who can deal physical damage. Demi-Fiend can learn Heat Wave from the Kamudo Magatama, so that's a perfect answer to this boss. This was the main problem with dismissing the Demi-Fiend. Once he's banished from the active party, you don't have him in some essential boss fights, and he doesn't gain any experience from encounters, meaning no level ups, and the max level you can fuse demons would be locked until you summon him back. Back to Shiner's run, the last time you'll see the Demi-Fiend in the party is at level 35, right after the Spectre 3 fight, which happens to be when you can fuse up to Saki Mitama. At this point, much of Shiner's early party is fused to make elementals, and then Mitama's to feed into the main character of the run, Oni. For such a low level, Oni has a great base vitality stat and learns the HP increasing passive life gain, and by sacking Uzume in a sacrificial fusion, you can pass life bonus and Shifuri over to Oni. Oni also naturally learns Warcry, an ability that lowers enemy attack by 2 levels. This, combined with previous fusions to grab Rakukaja and Tarukaja, plus Shifuri to escape from late game bosses, makes Oni the true MVP of this run. Kushi and Saki Mitamas are dumped into Oni to buff his vitality, so he'll have over 450 HP going into the end game. Kagutsuchi has an ability called Infinite Light, which can deal up to 447 damage if it hits, so Oni absolutely needs the extra HP to survive. Baphomet is also fused for the Beck and Call ability, as Shiner waits to permanently dismiss the Demi-Fiend and doesn't have another option to get a demon back into the summoned party. He also does this in case the demon dies in an encounter and he goes back down to 3 demons in the party. Remember, the game believes you have 5 demons in your active party at this point, so losing one puts you at the summon cap via normal means. With that being said, Shiner completed his first hard TDE glitched run on August 11th of 2023 with a time of 8 hours, 2 minutes, and 9 seconds. This run was mainly an exhibition, with quite a few mistakes throughout. Runs of any category on the hard difficulty are prone to instant death, so it's not surprising there was a bit of time loss in places such as Spectre 3. Shiner would come back to improve this time twice 9 months later, with the final time of 7 hours, 11 minutes, and 22 seconds set on May 18th of 2024. These 2 records are something that the SMT Nocturne speedrunning community never expected to see, especially since the PS2 version has no major skips that have been found yet. It's crazy to me that someone can find a glitch that appears to be completely useless, reproduce it, and once the speedrunning community gets their hands on it, someone can take that and completely break the game. I want to give a special thank you to Brotodile and Shiner for helping me with this video. please check out their runs if you have some time. As someone who obsessively watches SMT Nocturne speedruns, I can say that these are a great watch. As for the rest of you all, stay hydrated, and thank you all so much for watching.